Well, gotta give people what they want. You guys, I finally finished Medsmap. What started at the beginning of this year and has taken over 8 months to complete is finally done, lads. We've done it. I have so many thoughts and I'm so glad a couple of you asked for a part 2 because I would go crazy trying to hold all of this up here. For those of you who don't know, Medsmap is Ahmed Aldoori's online course that he was so kind and generous to gift me with. And if you have no idea about any of this or how it happened, you haven't watched part 1, which I did at the beginning of the year, I'll leave a link to it up there. Make sure you watch it because without that, this video will make no sense at all. So here's what we're gonna do. Today we're gonna look through the final 6 chapters of the Medsmap basic course. So that is like the lowest tier of the course you could purchase. And then next week we'll take a look at the 3 extra units in the complete edition, as well as the 3 units in the 2022 expansion pack that he just released recently. The expansion pack was free for everyone who purchased this course, and not to spoil too much, but it does have an entire unit called Style Study. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that out. And to add to the list of wonderful kindness that Ahmed has shown me, he also gave me a cool affiliate link at the beginning of the year. It doesn't actually affect your purchase of the course in any way, but it does allow me to earn a small commission referral fee. So a massive thank you to everyone who has already purchased through that link. It's helped me out so much. But if the rest of you guys are somehow interested in this course by the end of this video, I will leave a link to my affiliate link to the course page in the description below. But if you're excited about this video, hit that thumbs up button, and without much further ado, here's Medsmap part 2. First of all, video quality and colors might be a little different for this part of the video. I've had to switch to my front camera because my phone just does not like overheating. And there is a snoring dog in my background. So if you hear that, pretend it's not there. So as a quick recap, in case you haven't watched part 1, which by the way, I am so offended, but I get it, honestly. Late last year, I did a style study on Ahmed Aldoori's art, and not only did he watch it, he also reached out to me on Instagram and gifted me the complete edition of the Medsmap course. So I thought I would do a review type video earlier in the year after taking the first 10 or 12 units of the course. And I did a video review, and I may have promised to share all my assignment progress on Instagram, and that didn't happen. Please don't hurt me. I promise I'll do it. I just wanted to get these videos out first. So today we're going to go through the final 6 chapters of the base course, which is the lowest tier of the course. But I hope through this video you can see just how much information you get even with just the base course. In the last video, like I said, we did the first 10 units, which covered the basic forms, values, color theory, anatomy, and master studies. So in today's video, we're going to start with unit 11, alla prima. Alla prima is the technique of painting your entire painting in one sitting. And as Ahmed mentions in the course, it is the true meaning of the term speed painting. The technique he uses to paint here is what Ahmed calls direct painting. It is basically the process of not using a sketch or line art, but going straight in with paint and starting by simplifying values before building them up. He mentions how the term speed painting has become a misnomer because we equate it to watching a time-lapse video of a long painting process that has been sped up, when in fact the original meaning of the term was to paint quickly, usually in one sitting, putting down as much information in the scene as possible and practicing that holy grail concept of brush economy. this is something I've been consciously trying to practice. Brush economy is the concept of using as few brush strokes as possible. Instead of using a tiny brush radius and rendering for hours and hours, he teaches us how to start with large brush strokes, and instead of going super detailed super early, how to plan out your painting consciously where every mark you make is meaningful. He also shows us how to alter the reference image so it is more visually appealing. There was a huge emphasis in this unit on figuring out the colors on your reference rather than using the eyedropper to color pick from it. I think this is an important skill to repeat over and over again because it really helps us build a color library in our mind, meaning that eventually we can just rely on our intuition to pick an appealing color palette and such. My biggest takeaway from this chapter was definitely the brush economy, because so many times I've noticed myself enter a mindless stupor of rendering. Not flow state, but a state of trying to overly render things in a desperate bid to try and achieve some impossible painting goal. But being conscious and conservative with your brushwork is definitely the way to go, because look how nice this study turned out. Unit 12, Studying Real Faces. Now, this is the final unit I was able to finish before going away because of an emergency in the family, and I'm so glad I finished this unit because it is what kept me sane through those 2 weeks away. In this unit, Ahmed mentioned the Instagram account Earth's World. He's basically a photographer that goes to things like county fairs and photographs real people going about their real life. So these aren't your usual supermodel shots with diffuse beauty lighting. These are candid photos of a whole variety of subjects that have so much character in their faces. I actually did a whole bunch of these in my sketchbook, as you can see, and I've absolutely loved doing this as an assignment as well. These are just faces you don't see in art. We have a tendency to draw and paint idealized faces, right? We see the perfect, conventionally beautiful portraits, and that is what we translate into painting. But the most standout characters out there are usually very unconventional looking. So this is definitely a chapter of the course that is going to open up your mind and really expand your visual library, I promise. Now, this is the point in the course where we start to bring some originality into our painting process with Unit 13, Stylized Portrait Study. And through a whopping 11 videos, Ahmed talks us through a myriad of different options and different techniques on how to render a portrait in a more painterly stylized fashion. He actually starts with some tips on how to best crop a photo reference in order to make it an interesting composition with good rhythm, tension, and negative space. And while this is fairly similar to doing a photo study, there are some tips in here that veer away from getting the exact likeness, textures, and details. There's a few broader tips in this unit that I learned that I want to share with you. Now, these tips aren't specific to the course, but just great advice in general, and these are not even remotely the entire learning material in this unit, so I do feel comfortable sharing them with you here. The first was to squint at your reference in order to see the shapes in 2D rather than being confused by all the 3D forms in there. This allows you to break down the complex facial features into simpler silhouettes. The other tip is to look at relative values. So a great example in the reference that he used was the relative highlights. So the photo had a secondary light that created a bit of brightness in the shadows, and he mentioned how it was important to remember that that highlight wouldn't be the same value as the main highlight where the key light hit. And also that the key highlight wouldn't necessarily be a super bright tone, but rather a tone that is as brighter than the midtone as the shadow is darker. So think of highlights and shadows in terms of their relative contrast from the midtone, rather than near pure black or pure white. At this stage, I just quickly want to acknowledge just how good the structure of this course is, because with the last 3 units across the 27 videos, every single thing that he talks about is stuff we have actually covered with the basics in this course. So not only does he build you up from ground zero, he also takes the time towards the end of the course to teach you how to actually apply the things that you've learned. You'd be surprised at how many courses leave out this crucial element of learning, where you figure out how and where to apply all of your knowledge so far into your actual painting process. So with this structure, Ahmed not only gives you the basic book smarts, he also tells you how to use it to bring out your street smarts. Unit 14, Shape Design, is where we really get into original thought in art. This is where we start to think about painting things that aren't just another photo study. Here we start to look at the relative sizes of the elements in our composition and how to arrange them in order to create rhythm. I was actually surprised at how this even applies to stylizing the proportions of a human face and body, because there was a bit where he walks you through some beautiful character concepts and breaks down good character design into these rhythmic compositional elements. There is, of course, understanding what the 3 main shapes, squares, circles, and triangles stand for, and this is something we've seen in detail, particularly in the Encanto video I did a while back. He then goes even deeper with resizing and arranging these shapes in order to create a visually appealing pattern and composition, and also talks about how curves and angles play off of each other, and how peripheral and negative shapes can be used to drive attention to your focal point. But the overall emphasis of this unit is to think about your character in design terms rather than purely using it to convey a story. I have to say, this was my personal breakthrough chapter through the entire course so far, because I'm at that stage in my art where I'm struggling to create dynamic compositions, where the perspective is not enough. There is always some little thing missing. This chapter was that little thing, and my mind is absolutely blown. Unit 15, our penultimate unit, is another fundamental exercises kind of chapter called Appealing Light. This is where we take a break from painting faces for a little bit and take a look at a variety of lighting scenarios and dynamic lighting using a very simple form. This was probably the easiest assignment in the latter half of the course, because for this one we don't actually paint faces, but rather a simpler egg-shaped base. Here we practice applying different lighting scenarios to the egg based on photo references. Ahmed walks us through first figuring out what the exact lighting scenario is, then applying the values to the egg without needing to actually paint it by hand, and then using colors to better emulate the palette in each reference. This to me is quite like Unit 8 color appeal that we looked at in the first video, in that you can sit down in your free time and create loads of these lighting eggs and save them in a folder, so that eventually when you're painting your own scenes, you can refer back to these and boom, you have a bunch of dramatic, dynamic lighting scenarios you can pick from. So best believe I'm making loads of these and saving them for future pieces. And finally, Unit 16, Intro to Concept Art / Concept Design, is, as the title suggests, an introduction to the thought process that goes behind designing memorable original characters. To me, this was definitely my second biggest breakthrough chapter in the entire course. This unit starts with a quick talk about shadow work and breaking generational trauma, which was unexpected, but you already know on this channel we're all about that shadow work live. I think it is really important that he shared that first video in this series, because it almost felt like a guide on how to create incredibly personalized art rather than sticking to painting generic art that you think people want to see. I love that he goes deeper than just the aesthetic value of visual concepts and focuses on how, even if you're working on a client brief, it can be incredibly helpful to dive deep into your own mind and tap into your own inner truth. In this unit, he walks you through creating an original character based on his emotions at the time. And you guys, there are so many tips that really help you get started translating something as abstract as feelings into concrete drawings. I want to just quickly acknowledge this line in all caps from my notes. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. There's techniques on ideation with and without references, as well as how to create several concepts before honing in on a final design choice. Plus, he does still use references for things like lighting and shadows. As you can see, I actually mind mapped the whole process of creating this character based off my own emotional stuff that I was going through earlier this week. And after running a few trial head and body tests, I grabbed a bunch of references and put together this character. Towards the end of the unit, Ahmed also talked about something that is super important, and that is how a portion of the art community likes to insist that in order to be a quote real artist, you need to do everything by hand. So no using digital tools like Liquify, or worse, no using photo references, because that's cheating and makes your art less arty. And you know, this kind of imposter syndrome is something we all face, where we feel the need to paint every single thing by hand, or our art isn't real art. We feel that in order to earn the respect of our peers and the art community in general, we need to work harder, not smarter. But there was a bit in one of the final videos of this unit where he said something that blew my mind. To paraphrase it, he said, "How arrogant is it to think that you can create everything by yourself with no help or references?" Hello? This is a genius mindset tactic. Beat toxic thought with toxic thought. Oh, you think my art isn't real art because I use reference? Well, that's mighty arrogant of you. Honestly, I don't even need therapy now. I'm kidding, obviously, but that was probably the most powerful thing that I've ever heard, and I thought that would be a wonderful place to end this video on. So that was all 16 chapters of the basic Medsmap course. I personally think this is a wonderful all-encompassing course for character art because it takes you through the very basics of form and anatomy, through into the intermediate topics of lighting and color appeal, into the advanced topics of concept art and shape design. In other words, while this is an excellent course for beginner artists, it is also a really good resource for intermediate and advanced artists. Now, obviously this is my personal review as someone who didn't actually go to art school and is completely self-taught, but listen, there are so many amazing little theoretical things that you learn along the way, so many conceptualizations that you don't even see anywhere else on the internet that really help you come away from this course not just a better artist, but also better equipped to think laterally and do some creative design problem solving. But most of all, I find that even after spending 11 years painting, I find that even watching just one unit of the Medsmap course fills me with so much inspiration to just go out there and paint, and I actually want to do the assignments, and that is one of those little magical things that I really can't explain how or why it happens, but it does. And like I said, next week we're going to take a look at the 3 units in the Medsmap Complete Edition, as well as the 3 extra units in the 2022 expansion pack. So if you're excited for part 3 and you enjoyed part 2, please do remember to like and subscribe. It helps me out so much. And if by any chance I've managed to convince you today to check this course out, I would be so grateful if you could do it via my affiliate link below. Thank you so much to Ahmed for A, the course itself. It is a wonderful gift and I'm so grateful. B, the affiliate link because it's helped me out so much. And C, for all the troubleshooting that went with it. I know I've probably annoyed him far too much, but I'm so grateful because he's always been so kind and patient with me, so thank you so much. But alrighty you guys, my phone is probably overheating from recording for this long, so thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I know it was a long one, but I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Check out some more videos up here and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!